I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Yeah, the song is called Breathe. Yeah, that's not the originals, but that's Willie Nelson. So I figured I'd give you guys something a little different. And as you know, everything reminds me of a song, and this guest is no different. He reminds me of the song Breathe.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good one.
so you'll learn a lot about me, Bob. I love everything.
I do this with music too.
Yeah. The guy we're talking to today, we're going to be talking about breathing because think about it. You stop breathing and you're dead.
No choice, right? You can go, 3 minutes without breathing, 3 days without water, maybe, and just a short amount of time, or without food, maybe 3.
Well, we can go longer without food.
Yeah, you can go 3 months. I know people have done it, but it's quite a time. But breath, 3 minutes.
You're hearing his voice, folks, and I haven't even introduced him yet. I'm talking about Bob Soulliere. Yeah. There he is. So, Bob, you're right. You go about 3 minutes without oxygen. Yeah. I mean, they could bring you back from that, but you might have brain damage after that point, right? We've had people go longer than that.
I mean, I tell people you can make it 10 minutes, but you can't do it. Yeah. But you could, your body will still be okay. You just can't hold your breath that long.
Right. You will all of a sudden start sucking air in if you're not underwater where your lungs will fill up. They could bring you back from the dead. Right. But then at a certain point, breathing is the one thing you can't go very long without. We need oxygen. You mentioned water. Yeah. I used to be an ultra cyclist, and a lot of these races are done out in the desert, which means it's extra dry conditions. So if you didn't have a van following you with water, you would be dead in no time. Yeah. As a matter of fact, in Death Valley, most people whenever they find an abandoned car, they just check a 3-mile radius and they usually find the person dead. Yeah. And here's the reason, the car died out in the desert. You walked away from the car by 3 miles. You realized, oh, wait, this is not a good idea. You start walking back to the car. Dehydration will take you that fast. Right. You will sit down to try to recoup and you'll never get up and then you'll die. And that's just a fact that, go ask anyone where they find people out in the desert and it's right near their car trying to get back to it.
Yeah. And if you were breathing through your nose, you would save about 40% of that moisture compared to your mouth. So
that's right. Because
breathing, you're even that much more screwed.
People don't realize, Bob, that two things, I always ask people this question, I always like asking like aerobic teachers and stuff like that. They all talk about calories, right? You take in calories, you burn calories, and I'll say, well, what's a calorie? And they're dumbfounded. Like they cannot describe that. It's nothing but a unit of measuring energy.
It's the energy that it takes to raise 1 cubic centimeter of water 1 degree Celsius.
1 emulsified drop of water, 1 degree Celsius. That's correct.
I believe that is what it is. Yeah.
So that is exactly what it is. So it's nothing but a unit of measuring energy or heat. Well, heat is energy. And then the next question I will get to is, how does your body lose fat? And of course, people will say through elimination, through peeing and pooping. And it's like, no, that's how we get rid of waste material. The way we get rid of it, and Bob pointed to his mouth, we burn energy the same way we take it in. Yeah. It comes out of our mouth in the form of water particles. So if it's cold enough outside, you'll see the energy leaving your body. You're burnt, that's your exhaust pipe. Yeah. It's your intake valve and your exhaust pipe.
Right. Yeah. We reverse photosynthesis. So that's the energy system that we have. And so it's going out through your breath mostly. Most of it's carbon coming out.
Yeah. And there you have it, folks. And that's the podcast today. We've learned more in this first 3 minutes of this podcast than most people will ever know. I mean, most people don't know these things.
Yeah.
Right?
And the big thing is, Vinnie, too, like all the work that I do, I mean, I really do call all this stuff. It's like, these are all party tricks, but they're like important party tricks, all the stuff that we teach people. But I mean, honestly, if you simply knew that your nose is the thing to breathe through and not your mouth, that would save and change a lot of the way people perform, because that's actually the thing that captures your carbon dioxide and slows down your breathing and cleans all the air that's coming in and sterilizes it and keeps your airway strong, which people have collapsing airways, they have apneas. And one of the big factors is that you're breathing through your mouth. So if we can just become aware even of your breathing and then begin to move to nasal breathing for almost all your effort, it's going to change you. And I mean, I work with people on this every single day. And my big advice to them is become aware of your breathing and then just slow it down. Slow it down. Yeah. These two things change your nervous system, and that will put you so much more in the driver's seat of life. So it's really basic stuff, but we don't know that this is the way it works. So yeah, I mean, I'm just so glad to have this chance to talk with you about it, because it's not, if we learn these things first, we could actually have better attention in school, because if you're sitting there all anxious and you don't even know that your breath is the thing that controls your nervous system, then you don't feel like you have control. So that is a gift to anybody, to know that when you just slow your breathing down, it puts you in a greater state of presence. And then you can your emotional intelligence goes up, your cognition improves, even your eyesight improves. You can actually take in details better. Your peripheral vision improves. So your autonomic nervous system comes into that rested state, and you can start to pay attention to what's happening around you. And that's just a gift to anybody who just wants to perform and wants to live a life that feels good. So it's really that simple, actually. As you said, like, the breath is the key to your nervous system. So let's use it for that purpose.
Bob, I heard one time, and I don't know if there's any truth behind this or anything, but it sounds like a good story. There was an Indian tribe, or maybe several Indian tribes, that would train their braves. This is back when you had to have braves. You had to have your own army to protect you, right?
Yeah.
They would have them fill their mouth with water and run several miles over hill and dale and everything else.
Yeah.
And when you got to the other end, you had to spit the water out, meaning you had to show that you didn't open your mouth. Is there any truth behind that story? And do you know which Indian tribe that was?
I'm not sure. That probably is from that book, Born to Run. So it probably is, because I know that he studied the groups that are out there running, that are still running. They're able to.
Was it the Tahumaras? I know McDougall.
Okay. So I'm not sure.
It might have been from Born to Run. It might have been from somewhere. It seems like I've known that longer than I've known McDougall.
Yeah, I've heard the story before, but I hadn't chased it down to its source. But I mean, it makes sense if you want to train somebody to, if it matters that you are efficient, then the way to train them is to put a mechanism that's going to make it so you have to be efficient. And like we mouth taping, right? You mouth tape at night if you want to keep from breathing through your mouth when you're sleeping. Because if you train everything in the world to breathe through your nose all day, but then you go to sleep and your mouth is hanging open, well, you've just reversed a lot of your work. So maybe it's probably the same mindset. They knew that this made a difference. They'd probably seen people die of that, of running out of water in the heat. So they were very acutely aware of that. But I don't know specifically that story, but it makes sense if we were, So
and look, as an exercise physiologist, I've been yelling about zone 2 training for longer than it was cool, right?
Right.
It was me and Phil Maffetone back in the day, and we're buddy. He's been on the show half dozen times. And, I've always, just being an aerobic athlete, it's like, look, this is how you get there. Stay in zone 2, just build up a lot of volume. Once you have a ton of volume, if you want to do VO2 max work once a week or something, knock yourself out. Yeah. And God only knows you cannot keep your mouth shut when you're doing.
Right. You have to go.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not the majority of your work. And when people ask me, how do I know if I'm in zone 2? It's like, you don't need a watch. You don't need a strap around your chest.
Right.
Go out and keep your mouth closed and start exercising. Start moving, run, walk. And if you have to open your mouth, that means it's time to walk.
That's right.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
And then you get the butters. Yeah, but I don't run that. Yeah. Eventually you will run the whole time.
You will. Absolutely. I mean, the key is let the nose be the throttle of your intensity, and that will change you. So if you can do that for like 3 weeks, that's actually a huge piece of the training I do. Just let your nose be the throttle. And when you feel like you're going to go to mouth breathing, just stay right on that edge, because that's what's going to induce plasticity. So as you feel that discomfort, actually relaxing. So one other thing that matters with this is that so-called idea of willpower. I really think that willpower is not like the force to push through something. It's your ability when something gets to that edge where you're feeling really uncomfortable, that you can intentionally relax, because that gives you a durability. And so you're like, okay, I'm running hard. I want to go to mouth breathing. I'm heading out of zone 2 into zone 3 here. I'm like, and right there, just staying with nose breathing and then backing it down just a little bit. Just staying and then pushing it again and then backing down and then pushing it and backing down. It's like 4% over your comfort zone edge. And that's going to change you, because you're going to adapt, and your nose is going to become more functional. And then your carbon dioxide tolerance level will go up. And that will make your nose is going to pour for like a couple days. So right. That's a natural response, but you'll get the adaptation. So absolutely, just staying nasal for as much as you can. When you go to full intensity, you're going to have to mouth breathe. Absolutely. So, we just say it's like for an elite athlete, it's probably you're training 50%, 60% nasal, but then you gotta open your mouth, because it's just a bigger pipe. So, for full, you got to go to the anaerobic state for full exertion. But that's
my feeling, and tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. Once you open your mouth, you're getting more oxygen in quicker, but you're probably not hitting the lower part of the alveoli because you're not sucking as deep anymore. So,
yes, you're also getting rid of a ton of carbon dioxide. So it doesn't even matter what you're taking in, because
right.
Without CO2, I mean, this is really a story about carbon dioxide. Breathing is really CO2, because with CO2 is what allows the oxygen to exchange on the hemoglobin to go to the cells. You can breathe oxygen all day, and if there's no CO2 on the hemoglobin, it's going right back out into the world. So the more that you can learn to tolerate CO2 and be able to have a level of it that's higher, you can then get that into your cells. But otherwise, mouth breathing is definitely not an efficient way of breathing. It's just a big way of breathing, and it's the end point. When you move, you're basically fermenting at that point. And we can sustain that for a little while, but it's only meant for full exertion. And that's the thing with any athlete. I'll just say, if you're not training your breathing, imagine you're training your muscles. You're training every muscle, right? You're training your quads, your arms, your backs, and then you're not training your breathing. So you're leaving 10% on the table right there, because your diaphragm is skeletal muscle. It's the same kind of muscle as all these other, quads and everything else, but we don't usually train it. We don't think of it as something that you can train or that has a fitness level, but it does. And when it's at full exertion, it's using 20% of your oxygen supply. When it's at rest, it's using 4%. So when it's at full exertion, you're cutting off all the supply to all your periphery. It's taking priority. And then if it is going to quit, there's a mechanism that's going to turn off the blood flow to your extremities, and you can't even exercise more. So the fitness of your diaphragm is an absolute limit to your ability to keep going. And that's a huge piece for anybody. So for any athlete, if you're not training your breathing, you're literally leaving 10% right there, because it's another piece of your mechanism, and it affects how you move also. So like people that have lower back pain and stiff backs and all that, most likely you're not breathing, as you said, Vinnie, down into that lower part of your breathing apparatus. Like from here to here, I'm just kind of showing from my nose to like the top of my chest. That's the conduction zone. There are no alveoli there at all. You can breathe into this zone and there's no oxygen exchange happening. You have to go down to the lowest 17 divisions of your lungs to get into the lower lobes, where there's even an endpoint that goes into the blood system. So if you're only breathing up here, you're just sending it right back out into the world anyway. So the efficiency of the depth of your breathing, the mechanism, and that your ribs are moving out to the side, not just forward and backward, but that you're getting the expansion outward, that's opening up your diaphragm bells out, and then that's opening everything up and pulling the air down into the bottom part of your lungs. And when you breathe through your nose, it uses nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide distributes that blood throughout your lungs. So it's a huge dilator, and that's like one of the big miracle drugs that we make with our nose and other parts of our body too. And it's the same mechanism as Viagra for that. So it's the same.
Wait a minute.
Now see, now we're talking.
Bob, all right. So you've given us a lot of information here. So I want to go back a bit now and talk to you about exercises to do so. How do we get there? But before we do that, I got to do a quick ad, folks. PVC, PureVitaminClub.com. I believe in this company because, well, I started the company, and it started on a premise. I started it on the premise after I had cancer in 2007, and I started looking at everything I was putting in my body. And one day I was reading the back of my multivitamins and noticed things like titanium dioxide, silica, which is sand, and magnesium stearate, all things that should not be in the human body. 2 of the 3 can cause cancer and does cause cancer. Some vitamins are, vitamin B comes with cyanocobalamin. If that sounds familiar, that's cyanide. They hook it to a cyanide molecule. Does that sound healthy to you? None of this stuff is available in PureVitaminClub.com. I oversee the company. I get every one of my vitamins that come off the line privately tested, third-party tested. We use good manufacturing practices. These are the utmost vitamins on the planet. I do not just put my label on someone else's junk. These are proprietary. Everything we sell at PureVitaminClub.com is spot on. Go to PureVitaminClub.com and get there today. There are no discounts. Well, there's discounts if you buy multiples of things, right? So you'll see all of that at PureVitaminClub.com. We have this stuff at the lowest price you can. So think of it like this. You buy a Rolls Royce, you know what you're getting, a hand-built engine, the whole deal. But they charge you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for those. Or you can go out and buy a Toyota or a Honda. Much better car for a much less price. And that's what we build at PureVitaminClub.com. We're building Toyotas and Hondas. The best vitamins in the world at the world's lowest price. PureVitaminClub.com. Go right now. We're talking to Bob Soulliere. I didn't want to mess up your name. Bob,
good.
This all sounds good, right? But now we have to, there's got to be a prescription to what you're talking about, right?
Right.
I understand. Look, I've had James Nestor on the show.
Yeah.
Who's written the book Breathe. Right down the title. And James, we talked about James in a pre-interview.
Right.
We know the same people, and you are a master at teaching people how to use their breath, how to take this to a different level.
Right.
So use me as an example. I was a D1 football player in college, which is an anaerobic sport. I somehow meandered into long distance bicycle racing. And here at 62 years old, I'm still climbing mountains. How can this help a guy like me?
Right. So, it can make your breathing more efficient. It can slow down your breathing. So training your breathing can allow you to gas out at a higher level so that you have a higher threshold for your endurance period or in any intensity. And it can also allow you to recover. The longer you stay in an aerobic state, the less you're going to produce lactic acid, the longer you're going to, and you'll just, when you get into the anaerobic state, muscles tighten, tendons tighten, you're using up a lot of your buffering capacity, which is your magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium, you're using that up. So the longer you can stay efficient and not move into mouth breathing and anaerobic breathing, then the more you're going to be able to recover. So you basically stay more supple and more stretchy that way. So it impacts your tissues, and it allows you honestly just to stay in a more present. So you're not as distracted and your sense of stress is calmer. So you can have an experience of intensity where you have a sense of flow. in the sense of being in that zone that people desire in sports. So you can separate the intensity of your breath from the intensity of the thing you're doing. And you only learn these things. I mean, most people learn it through the training. So, I mean, one thing I have people do is, it's a very simple exercise, not the very first thing I usually do, but to do something like just start walking and keeping your breath calm, right? Or stepping, just staying in one place and stepping. And you just say to yourself, my breathing is light and slow and deep. And you're just keeping your breathing one way. And then you keep increasing the intensity. You go up to the next level and you keep your breathing the same though. And you stay with your breathing at that level. And then you move up to the next level and you're like jogging. And then, but your breathing is staying the same. Your breathing is staying light and slow and deep. And you're not changing the speed. If you are, go back down a level for a moment. But you realize as you go up, you're going to go up to the next level. Now you're running. And you're like, but your breathing is staying the same. My breathing is still light and slow and deep, but I'm going pretty fast now. I'm going pretty fast, but you're focusing on your breath. And then you go to a sprint, a full sprint. It's not sustainable for people for a very long time, but you're going out full out until you have to, when you notice your breathing gets stronger, bring it back down. As you do this, what you're going to see is that you can sustain a level of intensity that when you put your mind on your breath, you can stay a lot calmer with your breath, even at higher intensity. But it's something you do on purpose. But you come to see that your breathing doesn't have to correlate to the intensity you're moving at. It's two separate things. You can train those to be separate. And when you do that, you're staying in a state of presence. You're staying in a state of awareness. You're more receptive. You're more able to process your world. So that is one thing that is like, just a demonstration for any athlete that's intense, that they are breathing. We mostly think we have to breathe exactly as we're moving, but you don't. So you can change your breathing on purpose to be calm so that you're able to be more aware of what's happening around you. And that makes you a better athlete. So that's like, for me, working with somebody, a goal for you to keep your breathing in a calm state, regardless of your intensity.
Okay.
So that's a big one.
So I've been doing things my whole life, and I call, I'm just one of these freaks. I call everything training. Everything is training for me, right?
This is training, yeah.
And so in other words, if I have an itch on my nose, it's easy to, just go, start scratching or start, wherever you have an itch,
right.
But I've learned to do this thing where whenever I have an itch, just no matter how bad it is, breathe into it. I've learned to breathe into everything. No one ever told me, James Nestor didn't tell me, no one told me to do this. I figured out a long time ago, you breathe into the itch and you just forget about it. And within a minute or two, it's gone anyway.
That is great, Vinnie. I love that. You discovered that on your own, right?
Yeah. I just, and I've used it for other things. Like I shoot skeet competitively, and
nice.
Part of my problem and the reason I like skeet is because I'm a go guy, right?
Yeah.
And with skeet, just like shooting free throws or anything else,
right,
you have to relax your brain.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned, like I was still, even when I got to like the 90, when I started hitting 90%, right? That's still not 100%. In my mind, you should be able to hit everyone every time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that causes you not to is human error, right? We're human.
Right.
But I find that when I hit 96 or 97%, meaning 95, 96, 97 out of 100, it's when I take a deep breath before I call for the bird, take a deep breath, exhale the breath, and when the breath is almost completely out, I'll say and as a matter of fact, in competition, I've had the puller tell me, you need to speak louder.
Right, because you're at that end of your breath and you just want to whisper it there, don't you?
Most people go, pull!
Now you've reversed yourself.
And my thing is, deep breath,
right there.
Pull, and pull. And sometimes I'll say pull it because I want two words to come. I want the breath to keep coming out.
Yeah.
And when I say that, then the thing comes out at 60 miles an hour, and you have to move with fury, right? You can't, but your body's ready to move and then squeeze the trigger.
Right. Yeah.
That's that's the same as scratching your nose, right? It's you relax into it and then say the words and then do the action.
Yeah. Because, you really can't have full attention and resistance at the same time. So anything that you're putting your full attention on, like what you're doing with your nose, with itching and just breathing into that, you're giving it all that attention. It's like it can't drive you crazy if you give it absolute attention. It's there, and you're like, I'm just gonna breathe into you, and that also puts you into that parasympathetic state. It brings down your nervous system, so you're just able to be less reactive to things, and you're more in the driver's seat. It's a great self discovery that you have that control. And maybe it came out of the necessity to be calm under intensity, and you figured out that your breath is part of that. And that's
Well, I think I learned the calm when I was in high school.
mm.
When I was playing football,
Yeah,
right before
right.
the game, I would just lay on the gym floor or in the locker room on the floor and just take in deep breaths and try to see the game in my head.
Wow.
Right, you've been practicing it all week. You know who the opponent is. We played these same guys last year. I played this guy in junior high. I know his moves. I know what they do.
Yeah.
And you just breathe into it and try to see the game, right? Just sit with your breath. And I know it all sounds woo-woo, but
not at all. That's physiology right there. That is
right.
That is biology and physiology. I actually truly believe that most of the things we call woo-woo are just that our nervous system is so profoundly powerful, and we don't even know what it can really do. And when we get into these states, we think it's a miracle, but it's not a miracle. It's just rare when somebody can do like what you're talking about. That's not magic at all. It's actually what we're built to do. And if you think about it, it makes sense because we had to survive in the landscape. So if you were the person that couldn't calm down, you didn't see your prey. You couldn't see things moving. You couldn't predict anything. You were just like frozen, stuck right there. You wouldn't even be here. So your ancestors didn't pass you on. You are the result of people that were able to stay calm under pressure. And so that's why we're even here in the first place. We're like, you've seen that funnel. It's like, for one person, there's like 2 trillion, possibility or people, like, 20 generations back. Maybe that's a bad number, but some huge number of people that had to all succeed so that you're even here. And any of them, if they had screwed up, if they had been the person that can't pay attention out there on the field, you wouldn't even be here. So we've been selected out in a lot of ways already, just by the fact that we're here. And so you've got that skill, you got that insight, and it's survival. We're built for this. We have to do both. We have to be intense. And I've been talking to a lot of people about this in my training recently. The hardest skill right now is not intensity. The hardest skill right now is intentionally resting. That's the thing that most of us in the Western culture are having to figure out is how do I actually recover? And which ties into the work I do with heart rate variability, because I know you and I talked about this before, Vinnie, with that, your nervous system, it's your whole experience of life. It's like every dream you've had, it's every thought you're having now. It's like every memory, plan. And the thing that is the control knob of that is your breath. But it's also just, you can control the experience of your life by becoming aware of the state of your nervous system. And your heart rate variability is actually the thing that tells you whether you are recovering or you need to recover, whether you are resilient or like you just have used up all of your tanks and you have nothing left in your tank. And now you're just grinding your gears. So we don't typically know that until we get a symptom. Something that hits us.
Right. And it's because I think, and look, I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been into this my whole life. And I've talked to a lot of guys like yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when my wife was first going from running marathons, she got into ultra running it. And it was raining out. We were still living in LA and it was raining like it was pissing outside. So she had to go in the gym to run. She had a long run day. So I said, you know what? I'll come to the gym with you and just do an aerobic day with you. But since I knew she was going to be on a treadmill for a couple of hours, I spent the first 45 minutes on a rowing machine, and I spent another 30, 45 minutes on a stair machine. And then the treadmill next to her opened up, and I got on the treadmill. I wanted to do different things. I wasn't particularly in running shape, so I wanted to get my yayas a different way. And we're running next to each other, and she looks at my heart rate and she goes, "Oh, pretty good." I said, "Yeah, it's a little. I have a little cardiac drift at this point. We've both been hammering here for about an hour and a half." I said, "But you want me to show you a little party trick?" And she goes, "Go on." And I said, "Watch my heart," because we both have straps on. You can see the heart rate up on the machine.
Yeah.
I said, "Watch my heart rate go down 5 to 7 beats immediately." So I said, "I just have to concentrate, honey. Just let me concentrate while I'm running here."
Yeah.
And I brought it down 5, 6, 7 beats.
Yeah.
And I went, ta-da. And she goes, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" And I said, "I'm just concentrating on it." But the party trick is, when I said, "Let me concentrate," I slowly took in the deepest breath I could through my nose. I held it.
Yeah.
10, 12 seconds. I'll let all of that oxygen hit the alveoli, hit my heart, and your heart immediately goes, "Oh wait, I have more oxygen to work with."
Right.
And you take 2 breaths like that, and boom. If you know what you're doing with your breathing, you can do that.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You can bring yourself down.
Yeah.
Right away.
Absolutely. And we have, I think, another one of those powerful things humans have is biofeedback. We can change ourselves on purpose. And I don't know any other animal that can do that. So you can become aware of your heart rate and you can start to change it on purpose and become aware of it.
Actually, a possum does it, right? Because
okay, good to know.
When you think about it, like there was my dogs are I think my cats attacked a possum out in the yard not long ago. It's my cats.
Yeah.
And my wife goes, "No, it's definitely dead." Right? She goes, I went and kicked it and it's dead.
Yes.
And so I went, I don't think it's dead. So I went out there with the snow shovel and I scooped it up and I went, it looks pretty dead. But I put it right on the other side of the fence. It was at night.
Yeah.
And I came back in, I watched television for 45 minutes or an hour. And I went out, I let my dogs out to go out that, just to go take a leak right before bed. And I said, "You know what? I got to know if that fucking possum's dead."
Right.
And so I went on the other side of the fence and I have this watch on. This watch has, let me see if I can do it. See, it's got a little light on it.
Yeah.
I put it right over the fence and I looked. He was gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
He was gone. Yeah. That animal did not have, you could not see any movement, anything.
Right.
He put himself in a comatose state to protect himself from my cat.
That is, yes. And I mean, animals can feign death. Yeah, there are numerous animals that can do that. We can train ourselves to do that on purpose. Like, I mean, animals can do it by instinct, but we can also learn to be aware of our heart rates and drop them. But it's a practice. You, like with your itching of your nose, you can train yourself for just about anything. And I think that's another. So it's the big gifts to people are awareness. In all my work, Vinnie, the thing that really matters is just awareness, because you can't change something that you don't measure. And I know that, with the people you've talked to, this is not news to you, of course, because you've worked in all these fields. But that is what I bring to people. It's just it's all simple party tricks. It's just noticing that you're breathing, and then where's it coming from? Are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing in your chest? Are you breathing? Are your shoulders involved? And making them aware that optimal breathing is quiet. It's subtle, and there's a reason for that, because that makes you more efficient. And one of the great insights is carbon dioxide, as we talked about, that you're not taking a breath. You are a bottle of soda water, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just always bubbling up. And it's carbon dioxide. It's your metabolism. It's half of your energy system, and it's bubbling up. And when it gets high enough, you have to breathe. Okay, so that's a big insight for most people. They think that they just need more oxygen. But actually, what you need is the CO2 so that you can exchange the oxygen. Without the CO2, you can take in oxygen all day. It's going right back out into the world. So your tolerance matters, because it actually is what gets the stuff into your body that you need. Otherwise, you're just breathing it back out to the world. So these things matter to people. So awareness of your breathing, and then honestly, like you just said, slowing it down makes you more efficient. So the more, like, there's a cycle of stress. So the more, like, if your mind is stressed and you're breathing hard, and you're stressed and you're breathing hard, how are you going to break that cycle?
Mm-hmm.
You're pissed off, your mind is going, you're like wound up about something, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be able to like meditate now. But it doesn't work that way. So you have to, if you want to feel different, you got to behave different. That is, again, neurology and biology. Behavior drives feelings. So if you want to feel different, breathe different. And that's going to change how you feel. And that will put you, so you can, if things are going fast, slow it down. Just slow that down. And you can do that and no one has to know you're doing it. You don't have to show anybody that you're doing it. You can just, so there's your secret weapon right there. Just take control of your nervous system.
Well, I'm going to come back to this. I got to take a quick break here, but I want to go back to something you said earlier in the show. And I also have a device I want to ask you about. So much to talk to you about, Bob. So hang in there, folks. Villicapelli olive oil. You want to talk about breathing. This is oxygen in a can of oxygen. Listen, I get it. I'm Italian. We think we could fix everything with olive oil. I remember I broke my leg once when I was a kid. And my great-grandmother said, you don't need a cast, you just need some olive oil. That didn't really happen. But listen, in this country, you can get, like, you go buy Bartoli, you go buy this crap at the grocery store. It can say extra virgin, first press, cold press. All of those things are just terms anybody can put on the front of a bottle. The fact of the matter is, olive oil can be cut up to 40% and still be called 100% pure olive oil. That is a lie that our government allows. Do not get caught up. Go get Villicapelli olive oil. The longest running sponsor of this show, Villicapelli. They've been with us for about 12 years. We talked about this product before they became a sponsor. The owner of the company, Paul Capelli, passed away. And his husband, Stephen Crutchfield, said, you know what? We're going to keep this going. And that's what Villicapelli has done this entire time. Stephen Crutchfield has kept Paul's dream alive. Villicapelli is as strong, if not stronger than ever before. Get the 3-liter tin. It's about $100. I mean, Jesus Christ, Vinnie, am I Rockefeller? Listen, 3 liters for $100 is a steal. And if you spend more than $125 after the Vinnie discount, which is 10%, then you get free shipping. So let me do some math for you. Go to Villicapelli. Spend yourself about $140. You take 10% off, that's $14. Now you're down to $126. They'll give you free shipping. Think about that on 3 liters. That 3 liters, Americans, that's about a gallon. It's a little less than a gallon. You know what that costs to ship? You get that for free. Come on. Villicapelli olive oil. I drink it around here. Hell, people know that come summertime, when I go lay in my backyard, I put it in what's left of my hair, which isn't much. I put it on my scalp. It reminds me of my grandmother rubbing the olive oil in when I was a kid. I'm telling you, folks, this is not just an Italian thing. Go do this. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Vinnie, what, are you rich? What are you? What are you, like a Vanderbilt? You take your $100 olive, you put it in your hair? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And you may want to try that too. Villicapelli olive oil. We're talking to Bob Soulliere. And Bob, you mentioned when you take air in through your nose, I wasn't going to let this go, by the way.
Yeah.
You take it in through your nose and there's something special happens. Sure. And it's like taking Viagra. Now,
yes.
Here's the deal. I'm 62 years old and I've never taken Viagra. I'm proud to say I'm still on 0 drugs. 62.
Same.
0 drugs. How old are you, Bob?
I'm 60. 0 drugs.
60, 0 drugs. People like you and me, we're rare. Most people our age on 5, 10, 12 drugs.
Yeah.
I talked to a doctor last week. He said the national average was 10.
Yeah.
Okay. 0 drugs.
Yeah.
Not even Viagra.
Oh.
Of course, my wife is beautiful, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Beautiful wife too. She's in there.
Yeah, you should see mine.
Yeah.
I outkicked my coverage, Bob.
Yeah.
So, all right, so I can still get it up. I can still keep it up. But we know that Viagra is a vasodilator,
Right.
meaning that it doesn't just help you get an erection.
Right.
We know people in the mountains have used it, right, at altitudes,
Yeah.
right, because it's a vasodilator.
Right.
I would never mess with a drug like that at altitudes.
Right.
But you're telling me we could get the effects of Viagra through your nose.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you're talking about?
Well, you have, it's produced in your sinus. So when you breathe in, you actually produce nitric oxide. When you breathe through your mouth, you don't produce any. Well, 1/trillionth the amount. So almost none. So, and it was only discovered in like 1992. It got the Nobel Prize. We didn't even know it existed before that. But it's a strong oxidizer, and it's a vasodilator. So it opens things up, and its function in the body is not totally understood, but it's absolutely essential for metabolism. And so it just opens up all your blood pathways. It opens up basically all the smooth tubes inside your body open up with increase of nitric oxide. So basically, if you're breathing through your mouth all the time, you're getting no benefit of this. And so you're probably going to have tight everything, and things aren't going to get the blood flow they need in all the different places. So, that could certainly affect everything. So, but when your nose, which also, it's interesting because, your nose also has erections. You know this, right? You talked to James Nestor. He's talked about this.
Well, he talked about sometimes, like if you're trying to blow your nose, the right side works, but the left side closes off and it goes back and forth.
Right. But the tissue of your nose is related. I mean, Freud wasn't wrong. The nose and the penis or the clitoris, they're similar tissue. They actually both have the ability to get that erect sense. So your nose does a similar thing to your genitals. It's a kind of, and if you look, it's not, it's there. So it also has the response, the nitric oxide response too. So it's just sort of a neat little circuit we can make there. So yeah, the nitric oxide opens things up. And so if you breathe through your mouth, you're basically rusting. If you breathe through your mouth, you're rusting in general.
Explain that.
Because you're creating tons of free radicals. Because you're not managing all the free radicals that are in you, because you're not buffering anything. Your kidneys produce a buffer to handle all the free radicals that are in you. But when you breathe through your mouth, you're never training that, because you're not increasing your CO2. When you increase your CO2, it causes your kidneys to create basically baking soda. And the baking soda neutralizes the acid and brings you back to balance. So if you are breathing through your mouth, you're just acid, and you are rusting yourself consistently. Whereas with your nose, you're getting a balance of gases in your body, which is what allows your tolerance to go up. And so it leaves you in homeostasis. It leaves you at that pH level that we want. So when you breathe through your mouth, your pH is going more acidic. And when you're more acidic, you're rusting. You're not able to recover, and you're not really going into parasympathetic state, because you're constantly in a fight state. So as you become more acidic, if you eat sugary food, you can just notice that your breath rate will go up, because you got to get the carbon dioxide out, and sugar creates a ton of carbon dioxide. So these are just some symptoms that you're acidic. So if you want to find out, just check your breath rate. I mean, there are devices that do this, right? There's one that's supposed to tell you how you're supposed to eat today by you breathe into it, and it measures your CO2, and it says today you should eat this way or that way, because you're either more acidic or not. Maybe, but it's only for a moment. So, I mean, I'm more of a fan. I know you said you were going to bring into a device into the discussion here. So yeah, I'm a fan of continuous monitors of various things like glucose and heart rate variability and anything else you can measure across time, because we don't stay the same, So if you go get your blood pressure done and you see it once a month, how do you know anything about yourself, right? But
and we have a cuff here at the house, right? But mine, my wife's go up a little bit, but she's got to live with me. Mine is always exactly. I mean, it's spot on all the time.
Great.
This watch right now tells me, I'm not in a rested state. I'm moving around everything. I'm at 55 beats per minute. Total rest for me right now, I'm not in very good aerobic shape, but total rest for me right now is like 45 or something.
Great.
When I'm in ultra shape, it goes down into the 30s. But I haven't been in what I call ultra shape for a while.
Mm.
Um, so everything is measured, right? I don't use a CGM,
Mm.
but I do check my blood
Yeah.
because I check ketones and also check sugar
Right.
because why not? I mean, why not know what's going on?
Right. Well, that's what's running the show. So you should know what's going on the inside, right? Because I mean, it's the same thing and that's the thing, Vinny, with heart rate variability. That's what the thing I was going to bring up is like a lot. So one of the devices I work with is the Leaf device, which is
What is that?
it's a chest. It's actually an EKG patch that sits on your chest, and it actually reads the electrical signal off your chest, and it
Wow.
for HRV. So it doesn't try to figure it out from blood or pulse. It's a continuous monitor. So it actually gives you real time your HRV. You can see it happening continuously, and it gives you haptic feedback when you're below a threshold that you can set for yourself. So I use this in my training with all my athletes because most of them have no idea when they're sympathetic, parasympathetic. They don't know if they're resilient. They don't know if they've recovered. And I mean, I don't know if you've had Marco Altini on this podcast. He's the
No, I haven't.
scientist who developed the algorithm for Whoop and for Aura. And and he has said on the Whoop podcast itself, like they considered making that continuous monitoring for HRV, but they decided that athletes didn't need that much information. And I no shade on them. They're doing it. They have a product that works well for teams, but you don't get continuous HRV with those devices. With the Leaf, you do. Right. The Leaf thing, and this isn't an ad for Leaf, but I've been working with them for 5 years now, and I got to know through Jay Wiles, who's like one of the HRV gurus out there. I trained with him a couple times. He introduced me to the Leaf people and to the CEO, Rohan Dixit. And they developed Leaf for telemedicine, for anxiety and depression. But we saw that HRV is HRV is HRV, and why can't we use it for performance? So we just got some, and I began training myself, and then I began using them with my athletes. So it's a very awkward chest strap. You don't love it. It's got like patches on it and stuff. It does, you're not going to fall in love with this thing, but it's going to give you the feedback about your state. And it's a game changer to see when you're triggered and not triggered, because it's probably not when you think it is. It's probably other things going on in your life. And you're like, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, my HRV is in the cellar right now. I had no clue. Or did you even recover? Can you recover it? So what I really want for people to be able to do isn't just to be aware of their high or low HRV, because that doesn't matter as much.
Right.
What matters is, can you control it? Can you learn to modulate it? So this thing also has a biofeedback function, and you learn to change your breathing and your mindset to change your HRV, which then turns your autonomic nervous system, makes it more sensitive. It makes it more alert to what's going on in the world. It's like your instrument panel on your car. So if you're driving, I don't know if my sister once on the Mass Pike years ago went dark. Her car, like the alternator wasn't working. And suddenly, snowstorm on the Mass Pike, no lights, nothing. She was dark on the highway. Luckily, there was like a mass, one of the service trucks right behind her put on his lights. She was fine, but she went totally dark. She couldn't see anything, and she wasn't visible. So that's what it can be like when your HRV, when your autonomic nervous system just like is not visible to your own sensors. The sensors aren't giving you information, so you don't even know where you are. You don't know if your heart rate should be high. You don't know if it should be low, and so your autonomic nervous system starts guessing. It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe you need a lot of blood. Maybe you don't need any. It just starts to guess. And that is a crappy deal. And that's when your body is just completely confused and you can't function well. And you're just using up all your systems and you're exhausting yourself. So when your HRV is high, you're resilient and your instrument panel is beautifully lit up, and you can see if you have enough gas, you can see the engine temperature, you can see, all those things are clear. And that's the gift of being able to change and modulate your HRV, because you can decide if you can make yourself resilient again right now if you want to.
Right.
Instead of waiting, you can turn that switch as you learn to do this. And that's why I was talking about biofeedback. You can learn to train yourself to be more resilient because you want to be. And that for me is the biggest gift of all this work, is that you can just choose how you want to feel now. You can be pissed off if you want to, but it's
Right.
what you want to, not because somebody made me that way. Great, use it as a tool, but use it as a tool. So the work I'm doing, and I know you've had other people that do what I do on your show before, but what I love about this work is that I'm putting people in the driver's seat so that they can choose to show up more in life. And I'm doing all this work so that basically I can play with my friends. As I
Right.
told you, I'm like, because people are more fun when they're in control of what they're doing. And then we can go do the big stuff, like these big races like you're talking about, or
Sure.
whatever it is, or you can just be a nice neighbor, or you can, I don't know, become a philanthropist or anything else.
Look, it's always good to figure out. And by the way, going back to something you said about 5 minutes ago, as a coach my entire life, people like, when I was training people in LA, they were like, yeah, you're supposed to be really tough. It's like, the toughest part of my job is teaching people how to rest.
Yes.
Right. And nobody, they want to go, 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 go. And they go, oh, let's get the ultra athlete in here because he's going to make us go, go, go even more. It's like, you got to do the work, and then you got to let your body absorb it. And that's the part everyone seems to miss. They think, oh, it's not that important. I'll rest when I'm dead. Nike ads told me to keep going or whatever.
Yes.
And that's just not the way it works. I wish it did, because more work would mean more success, and it just doesn't.
Right. Because we're anabolic and catabolic, right? We grow and we have to recover and break down. That's just biology. And absolutely. And I know you've worked with a lot of high performing people. And sometimes the big challenge is resting. And it's not bad. It's not a cheat at all. It's not like you're being lazy. It's a mindset change. It's just that, like, just setting up the idea that when you don't even consolidate your changes until you sleep. You don't consolidate your changes until you rest. So get really good at resting. And then, so I just teach people how to turn that switch on faster, because you can become aware of your state. And you're like, you know what? I thought I was ready to go today, and I'm not. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do some exercise. And it's simple breathing. It's honestly just slowing your breathing down usually. And you can be 5 minutes and you can change your entire state. So, I mean, one time, Vinnie, I was running a retreat in Colorado. I got altitude sickness out there. And I was at like 8,700 feet, 9,000 feet in Granby, Colorado at Snow Mountain Ranch. And I couldn't leave. I'm running a retreat and I'm feeling really not good. And I had the tool I had with me was that ridiculous HRV thing. I'm like, I bet my HRV's in the toilet here. So I like, everyone was gone for a minute. I put this thing on. I just did like a few minutes of just slowing my breathing, but going close to my resonant frequency, that 6 breaths per minute business. And I didn't feel great immediately, but I put the floor back underneath myself and I was able to come back and just I was able to run that retreat for the next 3 days. But I had gone, I honestly, when they went into the sauna, I'm outing myself now. Anybody who's listening to this, I went off and I had to puke. I went off and just puked over there. They're all in the sauna talking. I'm like, I'll be right back. And I just went off and puked. And I was like, something's wrong. And I didn't know what it was. So, but I went back to controlling my autonomic nervous system because it's all I had. I had no other choices. There was nothing else to fix. I couldn't leave. So I was just like, okay, what can I work on here? And so all my training came back to me. And I was the guy that had told, hundreds of people to do this. And then I was faced with it and it worked. So I was very happy and I was like vindicated on that one. And so I can say that getting a handle on that can really make a difference for people. So it's not magic though, as you know, right? You got to put the work in.
No, it's not. It's never magic.
No, there's no magic.
So one final question, and by the way, I'm going to have to bring you back on because it's too much to get to in 1 hour.
It's a lot.
But I want to ask you about this device and get your opinion on it. I've heard everyone's opinion over the years. What do you think about this thing?
Which one is that? The Aero thingamajig?
Yeah, it's just one of them.
It's for your mouth, right?
Yeah, you put it in your mouth and it constricts breathing.
It's a fitness trainer, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
My opinion is that you're training people to breathe through their mouth. And that is not ultimately functional. I mean, I get it. I get the idea. The one that we use is a full face trainer,
Mm-hmm.
so it gives you resistance, but it also encompasses your nose, so that
But you see, I've never used this while I'm on the bike or the rowing machine or anything, but I've used it where, you just put it in your mouth and you suck in deep. It causes your diaphragm to really go down. And when you get the breath all the way in, the idea is to go some more,
yeah,
right? To get
yeah,
where you, and I've always wondered if it actually did anything, because at the end of the day, when I've used it,
yeah,
it feels good,
yeah. You get
but I
resistance.
don't know if there's any result.
Well, I think
to-
there's resistance. So the thing is, remember, we are pattern recognition machines. So whatever you train yourself to do, you're going to do later again. So if you're training yourself to breathe through your mouth, you're going to go breathe through your mouth more because you're training that. That's the reason I hesitate with this. So what I want is for you to get the resistance through your nose, to learn to breathe with resistance through your nose, which is why we use the full face mask. That you look like Darth Vader and you sound like Darth Vader when you put that thing on.
All right.
But that
Yeah.
gives you that same resistance on your diaphragm, but it's through your nose. And actually, I mean, neurologically, your nose is connected to your diaphragm much more directly. Your mouth and your chest are like a straight line of connection. So if you're training your mouth, you're actually training yourself to chest breathe more automatically. You'll still use your diaphragm, but you're not getting the neurological signal down to your diaphragm as strongly.
Right.
So what I want for you to do is to breathe. I want you to do what you're doing with your nose. I want you to train that. And you are absolutely training resistance. There's no question. But actually, I mean, when you're doing it with your mouth, it's a different, I just don't want you to use that mechanism is all. I don't want you to train your mouth for that. And you're also, I mean, when you breathe hard through your mouth, like that, or especially at effort, you're really putting a lot of like trauma into your airway because you're getting no filter. It's
Right.
no filter there at all. You're getting all the stuff. You think you're worried about the stuff you're taking into your body. It's a straight shot. There's nothing catching anything coming in through your mouth. So, it's not the way I want people to train, because you fight the way you train. So I want you to fight with your nose as much as you can and then go to mouth because you have to. But I want this to be the mechanism for training your diaphragm. It's much more functional. I want you to be able to sustain that as long as possible. So I've seen a lot of the mouth trainers, and my response is simply that it's a mouth trainer.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, sure, it's going to have some effect. Anything's better than nothing, but it's not, for me, it's not optimal. I mean, without knowing even the brand, it's not optimal.
It's just some brand I grabbed off of the
Yeah.
internet, because about 2 years ago, around Christmas time, I was in Europe. My wife is from Europe, and we're there. And all the ads that were coming into my computer right around Christmas time they had one that was hooked to a Bluetooth, and they wanted like $200 for it, or $250. I'm like, for this? And then it turns out that you could get the non-Bluetooth version like this on Amazon. This one's called forbreatheasy.com.
Okay.
And this was like about 12 or $15. I was like, 12 or $15?
Yeah.
I'll try it.
Sure.
Right? I'm not going to spend $200, but I'm good for $12
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
and every time I've played with it, I'll sit in my comfortable chair over there, sit straight up, and do some exercises with it. And it's like, this feels good. It feels like a massage. Okay, great. But I don't know if it's ever given me anything. That's kind of the problem.
It's probably given you something. It just hasn't given you as much as it could.
Who knows? But I just thought I'd ask you where you were on that.
Yeah.
Tell people where they can find you, Bob.
Breatheyourpower.com. That is me. That's it. That's the big one. Go to breatheyourpower.com. It's got my retreats. It's got my one-on-one training. It's got all the different partnerships, including with Hillary Boynton, who I know you just had on.
Yeah.
For School of Lunch, I work with them. I do their School of Lunch Training Academy retreats, and I take advantage of the fact that they're actually in Topanga at that one commune site where Wim Hof himself recorded an entire video series, and they still have the barrel sauna that he designed, and it's a beautiful big cedar ice bath that we use, and there's a shower coming out of a tree. It's pretty cool. So anyways, I train people in breath. The thing I love to do is work with a technical group that isn't focused on breath, and give them a foundation that allows them to be better in their technique, whatever that is. Musicians, swimmers, cooks, opera singers. I love working with them because they already have a job to do. And
Right.
my job isn't like to make them fantastic about breathing. I'm just giving them the foundation so that they can move better through their day, through their life. And they're just, because they're already wanting to perform. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, so I'm just going to help you increase your level of performance. So I give them that base, and then off they go and do the rest of the day. And then at the end of the day, we party. We get into the ice baths and the saunas and do all the Wim Hof stuff, but that's just how you close the day out. And it's beautiful. The School of Lunch Training Academy it's truly, I have to say, one of the most, what they've built is changing school food systems. And I am so on board.
Yeah, I want to see Boynton get this around the whole country.
Yes.
I mean, it works there, and I just want to see it everywhere else.
Yep.
Give it one more time, Bob. They can find you where?
BreatheYourPower.com.
BreatheYourPower.com. I'm going there right after the show because now I'm interested. Folks,
right on.
You know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com. Click through the banner. It puts a little coal on the fire. It gets my train down the track. So go do that. Go check out BreatheYourPower.com. And the guy's name is Bob Soulliere. I'm going to spell that for you. Soulliere. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's perfect.
I grew up in Cajun country, so I know some of these names.
Yeah, it's really good.
So, Bob, hang on through the music and everything because we have to upload this thing. Folks, on behalf of Bob, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living, and let's do it with one Miss Anna Nalick.